So recently, I was on a discovery call with a potential client, and he said to me, one of the first things he said was, Darren, I just feel like the whole Google Ads system is completely and utterly broken. He said to me he's been running ads for over 10 years himself as a business owner, but only in the last few years has he found the whole system too difficult to understand and too difficult to get results. So when he says the system is broken, it's obvious why he's saying that. He's come from an era where he was managing accounts by himself on his own using manual CPC, and now moving into the modern era, he's really struggling, and I have a feeling a lot of business owners are feeling the same way. So in this video, I want to talk about the reasons why a lot of business owners feel that Google Ads is broken and what the solution is to fixing this so-called problem of Google Ads being broken. Because in all honesty, it's not broken, it's just different. The first reason a lot of advertisers feel like Google Ads is broken is simply down to the lack of control. It wasn't that long ago where people were using manual CPC, they were setting bids for keywords themselves, and even the more advanced advertisers were adjusting bids by device, by location, by time of day, and all of those other factors you can adjust bids with. So as a result, there were lots of levers, lots of buttons, lots of things to do in the Google Ads platform that meant you could have full control over your campaign and you could adjust your spend appropriately. And what using a manual strategy meant was that you had to make changes very frequently. You had to be on the ball. If one week a keyword was doing really well and next week it wasn't doing well at all, you had to take that into consideration by adjusting your max CPC bid to reduce your risk and to bring efficiency back to your campaigns. Google wasn't going to do that for you. You had to do it yourself, and you had to stay on top of all of those decisions. So if we flash forward to the modern era of Google Ads, advertisers still relying on these strategies are going to hurt their performance, and here is why. It's because for most advertisers, most of the time, manual strategies will lose to automated smart bidding strategies. If a keyword happens to be trending positively and delivering more leads and sales into your business, Google's bidding algorithms can adjust for that. It can understand what's happening and make those bid adjustments to go after more of that volume when the keyword is performing. Now compare that to a manual advertiser who's controlling bids themselves. By the time they've spotted the trend, it might already be over. Imagine doing that to not just one keyword, but to hundreds of keywords in your account. There was a reason automated bidding software was such a huge market back in the day, whereas now the biggest player in the market has now gone under and has gone bankrupt. So that kind of shows you how far Google has come. So you need to stop relying on those old school strategies. If you take that old school mentality into new advertising, you're going to be making too many frequent changes to your campaigns. You have to accept the fact there are less buttons, less controls, and less levers for you to push in order to get results from Google Ads. The platform has got so good now that factors outside of Google Ads are often more important than the keywords and the setup you are using. Let me say that again, even as a Google Ads practitioner who has been on Google Ads for nearly 14 years, I can say that I am less important than your offer and your website. Half of my job is giving Google the opportunity to bid in the right way, get the right data, and for data to flow through campaigns with a good setup. And of course, the other part of it is writing ads that are compelling, that leads to good click-through rates to take a bigger share of the pie away from the total search market and away from your competitors. So yes, you have less control. There are less levers to push, less buttons to push. You don't even get all of your search term data anymore, which is another conversation altogether. Google reckons it's because of protecting privacy. I reckon it's bullshit. And look, I get it. I get that you don't want to give Google control. I didn't like to do it either in the early days of smart bidding. In fact, smart bidding used to be awful, and it took me a long time to get trust in this system. But do you know what gave me the trust in the system? The results. The black and white results. When I tested using manual strategies versus smart bidding in the era where smart bidding was just becoming a thing, and especially in the modern era as of today, smart bidding beats manual CPC and manual strategies for most advertisers most of the time. I recently made a video about the 1% edge cases where manual CPC can be useful. I've linked that down below in the description, but if you're not in one of those edge cases, then you need to really consider your strategy here, because manual CPC and manual strategies will lose to automated smart bidding. It's time to give up control and focus on the areas that you can have control over and can impact, like your website, like your offer, and like your written ads as well. That's where the win is, and let Google's bidding algorithm do the rest. Now, I've just been saying how good automation is in Google Ads, but the other reason Google Ads feels broken to so many advertisers is because of the overuse of automation. Now, I'm not being conflicting here. This isn't contradictory messaging. When I say automation is good, I'm talking about smart bidding. I'm talking about letting Google do your bidding as opposed to you setting your bid strategy as manual and changing CPC bids. What I'm not talking about is using PMax, AI Max, and Broad Match for all advertisers. If you go into the Google Ads system today, I can guarantee you, if you head over to recommendations, Google will be asking you to do all three. You'll be getting emails coming into your inbox telling you to do all three of these things. You will get Google Ads reps calling you or trying to book calls with you, asking you to do all three of these things: PMax, AI Max, and Broad Match. These are the holy trinity of Google's automations that most advertisers, most of the time in small business, shouldn't be using. There are legitimate paths to growth using PMax, AI Max, and Broad Match. I've made videos about it. I've shown success stories using AI Max with videos very recently. I've looked at Broad Match and how it can massively help grow accounts because it's a very clever smart bidding strategy that uses more data than the other match types. And I've also talked about PMax in one of my most recent videos, talking about how it can scale accounts under the right circumstances. But you need to have the conversion data to enable these strategies. And quite frankly, most advertisers in the small business arena don't really have the amount of data required to make these strategies a success. I can already hear you asking me, how much data is enough to give these strategies a try? There isn't a number on it. There's not really a specific number, but just based on my experience, typically I only really think about moving towards testing PMax, AI Max, or Broad Match when I have campaigns that get at least 10 to 15 conversions per day. Not per month, not per week, per day. And the reason for that is because I need to make sure the threshold of data is high enough to make those tests a success or even worth doing. Google will say that you can try using Broad Match, you can try using AI Max, you can try using PMax with way less data. They say, 30 conversions per month should do it. Just get one conversion per day and run these strategies. But quite frankly, if you're getting one conversion per day, you don't have a maximized search campaign, or your market space just isn't big enough. So there's a lot more work to do in either diversifying what you offer or scaling your existing search campaign. Because if you haven't got a fully scaled search campaign, putting money into Broad Match and into AI Max or to PMax could be wasting your budget if you haven't taken all of the demand at the bottom of the funnel where the most demand is going to be. So if recently you found yourself listening to Google, setting up PMax, setting up AI Max, testing out Broad Match, take a step back, go back down to exact match, run a campaign that's efficient, scale that campaign with efficiency, reach the ceiling of your maximum allowable CPA in terms of what is the most you're willing to pay for a lead in your business, and then you can look at where to raise the ceiling. And those three options of Broad Match, AI Max, and PMax are legitimate ways to raise the ceiling of what your account is capable of, but you need the data first. So going back to the reason why you may think Google Ads is broken because of automation, you don't have to use all of it. You can just take the good bits and the bits that I think are mandatory for most businesses and leave behind the bits that are not necessarily right for you at this point in time. Don't feel pressured, make the right decisions for your business, and you'll be good. And the final reason I want to raise with you as to why a lot of advertisers think Google Ads is broken is because of the lack of data transparency. There was a time, a long time ago, where back in the day, if you got a conversion on Google Ads, you will see that conversion on Google Ads. There was no such thing as data privacy. Well, there technically was, but nobody really cared. And back then, if you got a conversion in your campaigns, you will see that conversion. And it was basically more or less one-to-one. If you got a conversion, you saw it in your account. Fast forward to the current modern era, that is no longer the case. You could miss out on tons of conversion data for various reasons. A lot of users of the internet are taking browsing privately very seriously. They don't want to share data with companies. They don't want to share data with anyone. So browsing activity has become much more privatized. If you're based in the UK like I am, or you're based in the EU, you're going to have GDPR to deal with. People will now have to be asked whether or not they want to be tracked on your website. And if somebody says they don't want to be tracked, well, you can't track them. Typically, I see on most websites with GDPR involved, you're going to get opt-out rates of anything between 10 and 40%. It can vary that widely, but that's a big chunk of data that to not get into your campaigns. And if you think you're safe because you're not in Europe or the UK, well, America, in lots of states, there are tons and tons of states looking at decisions around being very similar to GDPR. These decisions are already underway. There are countries like Brazil, like India, all considering privacy legislation. So you're safe for now, but in the long term, who knows? So this part of the video is going to be very important to you. Google knows this is the case. They know that user privacy is going to be a massive focus, which is why they've done a couple of things. The first one is enhanced conversions, where they will take your first-party data from those who submit forms on your website and plug gaps in data using your own first-party data to report more conversions into your account. I have a video explaining enhanced conversions and kind of showing you how to do it coming up very soon on the channel, so it might be a good opportunity for you to subscribe so you don't miss that video. So besides enhanced conversions, Google also uses what is called conversion modeling. Think of modeling conversions like a scientific, educated guess as to which conversions were missed in Google's tracking. Google describes their conversion modeling process like this. Modeled conversions use data that doesn't identify individual users to estimate conversions that Google is unable to observe directly. This can offer a more complete report of your conversions. So in a nutshell, it's scientific guessing. Google is estimating conversions that you could have got if it had full transparent tracking end to end. And it's scientific. I make a joke saying it's guessing, and it is kind of guessing, but in reality, it uses a lot of advanced data models in order to estimate these conversions, to provide your campaigns with more data in order to bid more effectively using its smart bidding. And the reason it models and estimates conversions is because they know privacy is a big thing that's only going to get worse. So if Google is estimating conversions and you're getting less conversion data and users are becoming more private, then digital marketing as a whole, including Google Ads, becomes much more difficult and much more opaque. So that is why I rely on a metric in some businesses known as marketing efficiency ratio, or MER. MER works very similarly to ROAS, where you take your total revenue and divide it by your total advertising spend. With ROAS, it's just in platform within Google Ads, but with MER, what you're doing is taking your total company revenue over a period, say for example a month, and dividing that by your ad spend, again, same period for a month, and that gives you your MER, your marketing efficiency ratio. This is a good fallback to sense check the impact of your marketing. So let's run through an example to show you exactly what I mean. If within a month you spend £10,000 on Google Ads and you make £100,000 in your business, that is an MER of 10, or 1000%. So that is a very high MER, and it looks like, oh great, this is a fantastic result. An MER of 10 means for every pound I put in, I get £10 back. A very, very good ratio. So you think to yourself, let me put more money into Google Ads and just try and grow my business based on the fact I know when I put £1 in, I get £10 back. So what you do is you double your budget. You double your budget to £20,000 instead. But what happens? Well, instead of making what you would predict to be £200,000 by doubling your budget, you actually make in your business £150,000. This means your MER drops to 7.5 or 750%, which shows that your marketing has become less efficient when you put more money in. And the reason that's important is because regardless of what these platforms will tell you, because they often tell you what you want to hear, especially when it comes to modeling conversions, they want to take credit for everything, you get to see how efficient your marketing is working. When you put more money in, how much more did you get out? How much more efficiency of the incremental spend did you get out of your campaigns? And what is the total marketing efficiency ratio? And did you get incremental growth in your business as a result of increasing your budget? This is the number a CMO and a CEO would look at the very top level. They will say, we put more money into Google Ads, did we get more back in our business? It doesn't matter if you're freelancing, doesn't matter if you're an agency, doesn't matter if you're a business owner. If you're putting more money into Google Ads and adding more and more and more, but your top line revenue is not increasing, despite what the reporting says, despite what your agency, freelance is telling you, you know that you're losing efficiency somewhere. And even in an era of estimated conversions and kind of modeling of conversions where these platforms are telling you you're having a great result, in reality, the result isn't that great. So use MER as a fallback metric whenever you're looking at these platforms in the long term when you're making big investments, because ultimately, if you put a lot of money in, you should be able to see the growth of that increased revenue as a result of putting more money into your advertising. So in summary, you want more control, but ultimately it's time for you to let go of the reins in some respects. You want to make sure you're using the right bidding strategy for your business, and quite often that means using smart bidding. But using automated bidding doesn't mean you have to use every single type of automation in Google Ads. You need to sense check and make sure whether or not you should be using Broad Match, AI Max, or PMax. These are decisions you'll need to make in the long term based on the conversion data in your business. And lastly, you need to make sure you're using enhanced conversions to give Google as much conversion data as possible, and also keep an eye on your marketing efficiency ratio as you're scaling a campaign to make sure that the money you're putting into Google Ads is seen as a return in the business at the very top level as well. So yeah, Google Ads has changed a lot, but that doesn't mean it's broken. You just need to change the game as well and change your strategy in line with the modern era of marketing, not just on Google, but generally because the landscape has changed significantly. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, please leave a like below. Let me know in the comments if you have even considered using marketing efficiency ratio as a fallback metric for your business. Let me know. I reply to pretty much all comments on all videos. Head over to Darren-Taylor.com if you need help with your Google Ads campaigns, and I'll see you guys on my next video.